Okay, it being 6 o'clock, I will call the meeting of the Bourne Select Board to order on Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. This meeting is by Zoom only. Note the meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge such at this time. You need to unmute and acknowledge because I can't see all the people.
I'm here, MJ. It's Jamie.
Jamie, okay, thank you. Is anyone else recording? Okay, use of flash photography during select board meetings is prohibited. We're not in person, so that doesn't really apply. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the conference line 1-929-205-6099. The Zoom meeting ID is 885-5181-1543. The password is all capitals MEPA. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. But do please keep yourself muted until you're asked to speak so we don't get background noise. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes. We have 5 members of the select board participating by Zoom, myself, Mary Jane Mastrangelo. We have Anne Marie Sarunian, Melissa Ferretti, Gina Zarovitz, and Peter Meyer. Because we are on Zoom, all votes will be taken by roll call. So I will call the meeting into public session. The first item for the public meeting is with the MEPA analyst, Alexandra Strisky, regarding the draft comprehensive wastewater management plan, or CWMP. Helen, are you going to begin or are we going to have Alex?
I'll begin just by introductions. How does that
sound?
Okay, so this is the MEPA process. We have a brief agenda. The analyst for MEPA is Alexander Strisky. I hope I said that right, Alex. He's going to be outlining the MEPA process. We'll go through just a few slides associated with the summary of the phases that were done, what the draft recommended plan is for the community, according to their requirements and desires. And then we'll go to the select board for questions, public input, whatever. But Alex will explain this process in detail and how comments can actually be uploaded to the MEPA website to be official. So Alex, if you want to get started, I just put a few pointers here for the MEPA process. And I do have your email here just for everybody on this call, and then for the entire community. We'll upload this presentation so you'll have access to it and be able to touch on the live links in order to follow them. Alex?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alex Strisky from the MEPA office. Actually, I thought I would not do a super detailed description of MEPA and really stick to maybe the most relevant points for our review for this project for folks listening in tonight and who wish to participate in the MEPA process. So MEPA stands for Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. It's administered by the Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And a couple things I'd like to highlight about MEPA is that, first of all, it's not a permitting process. It is intended to be sort of more of a comprehensive planning level review of projects so that the public and state agencies have a chance to review projects, their environmental impacts, proposed mitigation measures, and alternatives. So MEPA is required when 2 conditions are met. first of all, there has to be some kind of state agency action required for the project. Usually that's a state permit from DEP or Mass DOT or some agency, but also relevant to this case, it can be state funding. So this project requires state agency actions. The second criteria is that the project has to meet or exceed one of the specific environmental review thresholds that are listed in our regulations. And this project meets one of those thresholds related to the length of new sewer mains that are proposed. So for those reasons, the project requires MEPA review. There are two levels of MEPA review. Relatively smaller projects with lesser environmental impacts are required only to file an environmental notification form. And then generally they're after the review of that period, after the review of that document and then end of the comment period, the secretary will issue a certificate finding that no further MEPA review, or she could determine that more MEPA review is needed. But usually projects fall into that category. Other projects, larger projects such as this one, are required to prepare, in addition to an ENF, environmental notification form, a draft environmental impact report and a final environmental impact report. However, there are procedures in our regulations that allow for a request to consolidate those three steps: environmental notification form, draft environmental impact report, and final environmental impact report, into two. And that's what the town has done. So they filed an expanded environmental notification form. It sort of has more information than we would typically expect at this stage, and have requested that because of that information, they file subsequently just a single environmental impact report. So that's something, a decision that the secretary will make, whether to grant that request for a single EIR. So the purpose of MEPA, as I sort of mentioned, is to give the public a chance to review projects before they get to the permitting. Actually, before I say that, I should say that one of the triggers for MEPA review was the requirement that there be some kind of state agency action. So the MEPA statute prohibits state agencies from taking any action on a project if MEPA is required before MEPA ends. So in this case, the town has to complete the MEPA review before it can be receive any permits related to the CWMP or receive funding for the CWMP. So the MEPA process precedes permitting, and it allows the public to participate sort of at a relatively early stage before those kinds of decisions are made. So the focus of MEPA is really, as I said, to review alternatives for project alternatives that minimize environmental impacts and ensure that mitigation is provided so that to the maximum extent possible, damage to the environment is avoided. Let's see, there's a comment period going on now. It ends on February 7th. And a week later, we are required by statute to issue a certificate. Again, that certificate will not be an approval of the project. It will, first of all, make a finding as to whether there be a single EIR or a draft EIR required. And then it will review the project, review comments we received, and then identify additional information and analysis that's we'll ask the town to provide. And then when at the town's, the town will then prepare a single EIR or a draft EIR at their own on their own schedule and submit that, and there'll be another comment period at that time. So I urge anyone who's listening in, who's interested in the project, to submit comments to MEPA. They will be included as part of the record. They'll be considered by the secretary in making her decision. And then they will also be forwarded to the town's consultant, and we'll ask that responses be provided to all the comment letters, and those responses will be included in the EIR. So I hope that is helpful. If anyone has any specific questions, either now or later, I'd be happy to take them. But I guess I want to emphasize that this is the first step of the MIPA process. There will be at least one more comment period after this one ends. And, I think my contact information is there, was up, I believe, earlier, as well as the link to the environmental monitor, where comments could be submitted through our comments portal. Hopefully my email address will be somewhere in this presentation as well. And you can also send comments to me directly. Yeah, there it is. Great. Thank you.
Can I just ask a brief question? You said the comment period ended February 7th. Was that extended to February 24th, or are we dealing with 2 comment periods?
Remember, there was a request, Alex?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
Yes. Okay. So I do have
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So I have here on the slide that the comment period is until February 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for correcting me.
Right.
So ends then, and then still a week after that, the certificate will be issued.
Right. Okay. And just, another comment, maybe if you could just outline a little more for the public about any comments that might occur today, and the process that really does need to be followed, though, associated with that.
Thanks for the reminder. This is an important point. I will be taking notes, listening to questions and comments as the night goes on, but the only way to get your questions or comments submitted to the MIPA record is to send them by email or upload them to using that comments portal. So please do that. And again, an advantage of that is also that the town will be required to provide direct responses in the EIR.
Thank you, Alex. So what I've been requested to do by Alex for MIPA is just quickly go through the process that the town went through over the last few years in terms of the CWMP, the wastewater management plan, and the phases that we went through, a quick summary of each of those, and then just a reminder of what the recommended plan is. And all this is laid out in detail in all the documents that are available for download, either from the town website or the MIPA website. And I believe, MJ, there is one spot where the town has the physical copies of the CWMP. And I think that's at Town Hall. Is that right, Marlene?
We have a copy at Town Hall in the Town Administrator's office and a copy at the library.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify that for people that if you didn't want to download it and you wanted to see a paper copy there, it's a number of volumes of information because this has been a multi-year process. So there's 3 basic phases that we went through. The first phase being the needs assessment. The needs assessment was done, began in 2021 and was conducted until March 2022. The project area was the entire town of Bourne. The objective was to identify requirements and key needs related to wastewater management for the study area. The process was we consolidated fundings of previous studies and local regional plans, environmental and water resources. So we did utilize existing information to make sure that we weren't plowing new ground and we were taking all that into consideration. We evaluated parcel density, land use, zoning, existing water and wastewater infrastructure. And then we determined the current and future wastewater loads based on the current zoning and demographics of the community and the long-term comprehensive plan that the community has and approved a number of years back. And then we gathered input from the public in regards to their concerns associated with wastewater management in the community. And that was phase one. And what came out of that was an identification of priority watersheds to help direct how the recommended plan was going to be laid out. The community has two what they call TMDL watersheds. So the maximum discharge limit for Megansett-Squatigue Harbor and for Phineas Harbor, there are removal requirements for nitrogen. Buttermilk Bay, Pecasset Harbor, and Pecasset River are considered impaired watersheds. And the determination was that for the recommended plan, the goal would be 25% removal of nitrogen, since there are no current TMDLs associated with those. Again, remember, once we get to the recommended plan, this is a 20-year plan. It's considered an adaptive management plan. So as projects move, as work moves forward, it gets reevaluated and at times can change depending on the results of the implementation of the projects that occur. So, and then two non-TMDL watersheds, which are direct watersheds, are Buzzards Bay and Cape Cod Canal. And this land just flows right into the canal. And there's some stormwater management that's been addressed in there for future years right now, but nothing associated with nitrogen removal. So that was phase one. Phase two proceeded right after that from March to December. Our goal was to meet the TMDL compliance for the existing watersheds that had the TMDL, as I said, and to provide 25% reduction across nitrogen impaired watersheds. The objectives is to make sure that it was compliant with the solutions of the 208 plan. And obviously the 208 plan has been updated over the years, and we took that into consideration as well, and make sure that we aligned it with the town goals. At this time, the select board did create a wastewater action committee, and this wastewater action committee had representatives from throughout the town to ensure that there was a voice for the entire community on the workshops and so forth. And we did have public outreach during phase one and significant public outreach and workshops during phase two. So phase two was the alternates analysis. So what we did there was look at all the options that are available for nitrogen removal and wastewater treatment. And that goes from centralized sewer systems, decentralized sewer systems, and general use innovative alternative on-site systems, as well as enhanced innovative alternative systems, and also stormwater management. And we created and you can read all the details of this in the reports, in the report. And so we went through all the alternatives, all the what we call pros and cons. We created a criteria and an evaluation matrix, and that was with the town. So we sat with the wastewater action committee. We were working with the select board. We were working with staff. We had open workshops where the community was welcome to those. We posted on the website and so forth the outcomes of those criterias, and we were looking at environmental impacts, design flexibility, public acceptance, and prioritization of technologies for each watershed. So that was what we were looking for to come out of phase two. And at that time, December 2022, the plan was to really do townwide general use innovative alternative systems and to move to the recommended plan and start looking at costs and schedules and how it would be implemented and so forth. And we have here, so this is what we were initially looking at for alternatives. Phineas Harbor, of course, sewer area, general use IA in Magansett Harbor, Squatigue, Buttermilk Bay, a combination of GUIA plus enhanced IA, and Pecasset River, Pecasset Harbor, looking at general use IA. So that was the alternatives that were prioritized but not finalized or anything else excluded before we went to phase 3, pardon me. Then what happened in December 2022, as most of you know, Mass DEP revised their Title V regulations and they were released. And based on those initial draft regulations and discussions with the Select Board and the Water Action Committee, Advisory Committee, it was decided to put a pause on creating the recommended plan until a final Title V regulation came out to make sure that the direction of the plan was in line with any new regulations that were coming around. So during that time period, July 2023 was when the revised Title V regulations came out. And then there were also new watershed permit regulations that were promulgated at the same time. And so we met with the Select Board to talk about what the implications of that could be as we move forward to the recommended plan. And then in November 2023, we kicked off the phase 3 of drafting the recommended plan and working on that based on the results that we had gotten from the alternatives analysis. Let's see, and I think I have the wrong one up here, don't I, Mabel? Can you pull them? I don't have the right. Excuse me. I'll pull it up here. Hold on a second. Sorry. Mabel, can you share?
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 second.
Yep. Thank you. So the phase 2 alternative analysis began in, no, we're on phase 3, sorry, recommended plan. Thank you. So the next step was the recommended plan. And we presented it in 2 ways to the Select Board. One was looking at the default Title V regulations, which require meeting the new Title V regulations within a 5-year period. And then we also looked at what it would mean if the community went for a watershed permit for Magansett, Squatigue, and Phineas Harbor. So the recommended plan for the town, based on all the input from the town and the analysis that was done, is to employ general use IA systems as a standard for implementation. Phase 1, which is for the TMDL watersheds, which under Title 5 are also called natural resource nitrogen sensitive areas, would be implemented in years 1 through 5. And to meet the requirements for nitrogen removal, Narragansett-Squatigue would have to have 285 systems updated to the GUIA systems, and Phineas Harbor would require 1,133. And that would be to meet your TMDLs within the first 1 to 5 year period. And then the second phase would be over the remaining of the 20-year period to be upgrading, to be implementing Buttermilk Bay, Pecasset Harbor, and Pecasset River GUIA system improvements, and then also looking at a core sewer area for Buttermilk Bay, which ultimately could either potentially go to the existing Buzzards Bay wastewater treatment plant if it were to have capacity, which hasn't been determined if it can expand to that yet, or flow to Wareham, depending on what their CWMP results are for capacity at their plant. And then if you, the next slide, Mabel. So the next slide, you can see there's a slight difference in that if you went with the watershed permit, we would delay the implementation of nitrogen removal with GUIA systems for Narragansett-Squatigue Harbor and Phineas Harbor. So that would be the only difference with that plan. And that's all I have, Madam Chair, for the formal kind of presentation summary. I think, Mabel, we're at the select board comments. We do have a slide on the recommended costs. I won't go into those gory details, right? But just so everybody knows that that is in the report. And we did go through looking at the differences between GUIA and sewer in the various locations. So now, Madam Chair, I guess I'll turn it over to you or Alex. At this time, do you want to? I think there might be some questions from the select board for MIPA.
So I guess my first question would be for Alex, if this is what you were looking for in terms of a present. I'm not sure exactly what you were looking for from a presentation from us, but is this what you were looking for from us?
Thank you for asking. You know, this is a pretty informal process, you know, typically. So, you know, we don't have a standard format. But an overview like this is helpful. You know, we have the documents, the full filings that we'll be pouring over. So I think it was helpful to me and also to any members of the public who are, especially if they're just learning about this at the time. So thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with a question, and I don't know if you're the right person to answer the question or if you can maybe direct us to how we get an answer to this question. So I've started, some of the comments that have already been filed have been shared, by Helen to us. And the questions that we have gotten, the major questions that we've gotten about the plan really touch on the difference between having a watershed permit and not having a watershed permit. And the watershed permit question is separate from the comprehensive wastewater management plan question. But I think what I'm interested in is, what is the enforcement of the new Title V regulations without a watershed permit? And what is the enforcement of the new Title V regulations with a watershed permit? And I don't know if you can answer that question or refer
No.
me to something else.
No, that's really something for DEP to ask DEP about. I don't know if anyone from DEP is on the call or, but it's probably, I imagine it's a complicated question. And, I think another thing that will come out of MIPA is that DEP will submit comments on the ENF as well. And so they'll offer guidance to the town on a variety of things, and maybe they'll address the watershed permitting as well. But I would think you could contact them directly as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think it's a core question that I myself have had difficulty explaining to people, and I think the public doesn't. There are new regulations, but what those regulations actually mean in terms of implementation for an individual homeowner is somewhat unclear. And so I think that clarification from DEP would be helpful. Are there any other select board questions or comments before we start, either for Helen or for Alex? If you could raise your hand or unmute yourself and let me know. I don't see any. We have a little bit of time, so if there are any questions or comments from the public, just
Sorry,
be
Mary
aware
Jane.
that these are not,
Mary
this is
Jane,
not
I
a
couldn't
public
find my hand.
hearing, and it's not, oh, you have a question, Anne Marie? Okay.
I couldn't find my hand.
Okay. I
My
just want to
screen's
say
full
this
of
is not
names
a
of
public
people, and
hearing.
I was just trying to find him. No, I just had a comment just in general about this whole process, and I appreciate, Helen's presentation and having the ear, MIPA having an ear for us and giving us an update on what the next steps are and how their, what their process is. But I think it's important to note, there's been a lot of hemming and hawing and frustration and uncertainty and a lot of questions surrounding the comprehensive wastewater management plan for homeowners and for us in general. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that regardless of whether we had all these regulations come down on us and regardless of whether, we had to go through this process or not, I think as a community, we have to think about we're a coastal community and how healthy do we want our waterways to be, because we are a community that, relies on, whether it's economically or recreationally or for our mental health, or it's the place we live in, how healthy we want those waterways to be. And I think that's really important to keep in mind when we're making decisions about this comprehensive wastewater management plan. And that's separate from, like you said, and Marlene spoke to it, and Mary Jane, you've spoken to it as well, from the watershed permitting process and what that would mean and that impact on the community as a whole. It affects all of us. It doesn't just affect those peoples whose nitrogen sensitive areas are beyond, TMDLs, they have TMDLs or who are, it affects an entire community. And I just want to stress that we need to keep that in mind. This is something that the whole community needs to make decisions on, because even though, my IA system is going to have to be updated, my septic system is going to be updated because I'm in one of those nitrogen sensitive areas. I'm not looking at it as just me. I'm looking at it as as a community. How healthy do we want our waterways to be? So it's just a comment I wanted to make, because we get so, drawn into what the regulations say and what we have to do and what we must do. But first and foremost, I think we'd be at this point looking at how we clean up our waterways, regardless of the regulations. I think as a community, we would be addressing it.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And any other select board comment or questions? There's I just want to say this, we're back to like a lot of people on Zoom, so managing the meeting, I've forgotten how to do it, I used to be an old hand at it. So if there are comments or questions from the public, I will take a few. I just want people who might be commenting to realize that this is not a public hearing. So any comments or questions tonight is not part of the comments made as part of the public record for the MIPA filing. And if you do want your comment to be part of that filing, you need to make it in the under the formal way. And Helen, I just want to remind you that we need you to send us a copy of the slides that you used for our minutes. We need to copy.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
We need a
that's the
copy of
plan.
those slides so that we have them
Yes,
for the
I'm going to
minutes.
send them, right, and we're also going to post them on the website.
Okay, great. That would be
So
great.
people
Thank
will
you.
have them. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. Okay, so are there any comments or questions from the public? As part of this, just MIPA review process. Bill Grant, you can unmute and make a comment. You're not, yeah, there you go.
Yes. My question is, to make comments, it would be helpful to have a better understanding of what the plan includes and what it doesn't. In particular, here in Squatigue, the plume from the base goes right under our properties. And it's unclear whether the discussion has been held with the base. I would hope that they would be receptive to, since they caused our environmental problem, helping with our environmental issues, wastewater. And I don't see any discussion of either working with Falmouth and having a joint watershed approach to Squatigue-Megansett and presenting it to the base to see if we could tie into their system. That's one question, but I have a series of questions, and there hasn't been much public presentation of what the plan includes and the process leading up to it. Is the select board, my question really, I guess, comes down to, is the select board going to have more public meetings on this important subject?
I'm not sure what you're looking for in a public, in terms of a public meeting.
Have you?
I mean, I think a lot of this has already been covered in terms of a decision, in terms of how we're going forward. It is an adaptive management plan. There's no saying that if, as part of Falmouth's plan, they are interested in us connecting, we could still have that discussion. Nothing's eliminated from the plan. It's just the direction that we're taking.
Well, if it is going to go before a town meeting for a vote on whether to adopt it, I think if you don't get more information out there and people look at the costs associated with IA, individuals having to pay for the IA systems, I think it's going to be defeated and we'll be back to square one. So it seems to me that more public hearings and discussions, and there's a host of questions. I compared ours to Falmouth's documents in the process, and they discuss things like fertilizer bylaws, like cluster systems, and they do tests. And I don't see that in the documents in here. So if you had public meetings and people were able to ask those questions, there could be clarification, I would hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Hobel, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, even give you a video picture. To identify myself, my name is John Hobel. In disclosure, I'm a Bourne resident also, but I also work for the Department of Environmental Protection work, and one of my primary jobs is to work on MIPA reviews, and so I'm dealing with this one. My comment is more of a general comment, but let me address the previous comment a little bit, because when I was hired at DEP, I was actually my first position was to work on the base, and I would believe that plume, that contaminant plume, or that those pollutants are based on the LF1 plume. And generally solvents in nature, and a different type of pollutant, a different impact from that pollutant. So the from my memory, I'm sorry, I'm just going from memory here, that the it would be a different alternative altogether. So I mean, there's no real interaction between the pollutants coming from the base and the pollutants discharged from the septic systems and other wastewater sources, including stormwater and the like. So there's no real connection between the identified plumes during the CERCLA / Superfund process from the base and these contaminants. So my comment is more of a administrative one. I talked to Helen about this afternoon. We have guidance on what a comprehensive wastewater management plan entails, and that is, keying in on the word comprehensive. And one of the first steps in that is to identify the current conditions, which would include the current collection system, treatment system, and other components of systems such as pump stations and the like. And knowing that Bourne has had issues with the current plant, including almost total shutdown, the die-off of the bacterial component of the system, and also odors, complaints of odors, and many times SSOs, backups within the collection system, and including corrosion caused by the conditions that develop within the collection system, both, I would assume, in the Bourne system, but clearly I've seen studies from the Wareham system, where it's connected to the Wareham system, that the corrosion has had significant impacts on the components in the Wareham system. So because that's some of my history, I was looking forward to have that in the comprehensive wastewater management plan, and that's within our guidance to include those sort of things, and it's not here. So from a semantics point of view, I don't consider this a comprehensive wastewater management plan. It may be something else. It may be a focused watershed management plan focusing on nitrogen as the pollutant and the total maximum daily loads. So I'm just throwing that out there as a comment, as something that I consider as part of that comprehensive wastewater management plan. Just as, and for those who don't know, because we have multiple folks that are different specialties, we do have a wastewater group that works solely on Cape Cod issues, and they are working on this, and we have two people attending tonight, Maggie Leary and Drew Osei from that group, and I'm not sure how far they've gotten in their reviews on the nitrogen mitigation portion of the plan, not if they're willing to say anything, but that's up to them how far they've gotten with that review. But we will be reviewing it. We will be, I'm sure, having extensive comment letter that will be submitted to Alex in the MIPA office, and to go from there. So.
Thanks, John. That was helpful information about some of that, because I know that we have addressed in our new plant that Kubota had to refit the plant because some of the failures that we were having for over foaming and stuff. So there has been mitigation of that. We have started a new chemical feed program for the Hideaway Village to address the corrosion. So I think that if that would be helpful to add some of that information into the background of the plan, that's good information to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's a comprehensive plan that we can pull off the shelf. Well, they're not in the shelves anymore, but we can pull that down and see the status of the entire system. So it's a good check-in for us to have everything in a comprehensive place. And I worked on the Plymouth corrosion issue, and that was part of the whole corrosion issue there because the corrosion chemicals were not added, and that caused them multi-millions of dollars. And Administrative McCollum was there at the time, and she understands that headache that occurred from there, and quite a scramble that was done at that time too. So, yeah, we like to have everything out. You know, I've worked on Kingston. I'm working with Fairhaven right now. I worked with Acushnet, Taunton. I mainly work on the projects that are not in Barnstable County because we do have a specialized group working on the Cape Cod wastewater issues. They are somewhat unique because the regulations are also focused right now on that. So, and usually we see, the plan, what the layout of the pipes is, what the age of the system is, what the pipes are. And if anybody wants that, I can, and I did forward to Helen, but it's available on our SRF webpage. Sometimes it's not so easy to check, but if anybody wants it forwarded to them, or I can forward it to the select board and so that if you want to have it available, the guidance document we have on the comprehensive wastewater management plans, I can do that. So I can do that tomorrow and I have some of your emails. I can just do that.
Great,
I think
thank you very much.
There's a selectman email, if I recall.
Yeah, select board at the new town. Yeah, you can. There's actually a link to it right on our webpage.
Okay, I can just attach the link to that and send that along.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if you can attach files to that, but yeah, yeah, send it to Marlene.
Okay, will do.
That's best, and she can get it to us. Thank you.
Will do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that I don't know, he mentioned Drew or Maggie. Is there anyone else that has a comment? Could you raise your hand? Maggie Leary, you can unmute.
Hi, I just wanted to offer that Drew and I are a part of the Cape and Islands wastewater team for DEP, and we are happy to coordinate a meeting with Helen and the select board at any time to discuss any questions involving how the CWMP would work for a potential watershed permit, and any other lingering questions as far as the new Title V regulations and the new watershed permit regulations. So feel free to email me at any point. We'd be happy to coordinate with you guys on that. And of course, we'll be providing, constructive comments through this MEPA review as well.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that would be helpful to have that meeting. Okay. Is there anybody else? Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay. So I think I don't see any other comments or any other raised hands. And I appreciate everyone coming and listening this evening, and anyone that will be making comments as part of the MEPA review. And we will continue to try to keep communication open. And thank you very much for coming. And thank you, Alex and Maggie and Drew and Helen and Mabel for attending the meeting this evening. Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to continue on with the select board meeting. We do have a joint meeting at 7 with the Housing Authority, but we can continue on until 7 with the meeting. I have the next agenda item is community shout out and recognition. Does anyone have anything for the community shout out this evening? I'll just mention two things. One is that the Bourne group started the round of competitions and did very well on that, with some of the participants going on to the state finals. And this is, I think, only the second year of the DECA program at Bourne High School. So they're really making an impact very quickly. And the other thing we got today was I noticed that from the county about the Cape and Islands license plates, and that money is being distributed to many authorities, including the Housing Authority, from the Cape and Islands water license plate. Peter.
Yes, I would like to recognize Rebecca Segato. Rebecca Segato is the middle school drama teacher, and she does amazing work over there with the students, but they moved up the production to earlier because she was pregnant and she had a healthy baby girl over the weekend. So I know we've all been to her production, so I want to say congratulations to them. I'm glad the baby's healthy, and hopefully she'll be home soon enough. So and thanks for all she does for our middle school students.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone here in the public with a public comment on a non-agenda item? You can raise your hand or unmute to ask to be recognized. Okay, seeing none, we will move on. We're going to skip item 4, which is the joint meeting with the Housing Authority, because we have to wait until 7 o'clock for their posted meeting time. Item 5 is the consent agenda. Consent agenda is A, donations made to the library totaling $620 in memory of Albert Hill. B, donation of $50 made to the fire department from an anonymous resident. And C, donation of medical supplies to the fire department from Mass Maritime with an estimated value of $3,700. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So move.
Motion by Peter. Is there a second? Second by Anne Marie. Any discussion? Seeing none. It's a roll call vote. Anne Marie.
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
And MJ votes yes, 500. Next item on the agenda is Special Education Reserve Fund transfer request from the school department. Jordan, are you here for that?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Jordan, welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone.
We did get a certificate of vote this afternoon by email that the school department voted, I think, at their January 8th meeting to request the $300,000 to be transferred from the Special Education Reserve Fund. Do you have anything else to add to that, Jordan?
I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Okay. Erica, can you let us know what is in the Special Education Reserve Fund at this time?
Hi there. I don't have the exact number with me, but it's more than $370,000.
Okay. So that's more than 370. So there would still be a little bit in there.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the request.
Second,
Motion by Peter. That was you, Anne Marie, seconding, right?
yes, it was.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote. Anne Marie,
Yes,
Melissa,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
MJ votes yes. 500. Request is approved, Jordan. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, everyone.
You're welcome. Let's get 4 more minutes. Deliberate and vote on the final narrative decisions for the marijuana host community agreement HCA applications. We had the draft document in our packet. Are there any comments or questions from the board? So I only had one change. It was on the Cape Cod dispensary. And the comment said that the application did not note any prior experience as part of the application. But I just wanted to amend that statement to say no previous experience of the majority owners on the application, because there was some prior experience of very minor owners on the board, but it was the majority owners that did not have. So does anyone else have any other comments or questions? I thought it was very well done. I thought it was a good summative analysis of the comments that we made. Any questions, comments? So I would
I think
entertain. Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
sorry. I think it captured the a lot of the conversation and the narratives and the deliberating that we had at the time when we were in negotiating HCA agreements and who to give them to. So thank you to Marlene and the team for giving us that narrative and putting it into a narrative.
Great. Yeah, I thought it was well done. Any other questions, comments from the board? So I would entertain a motion to accept the final narrative decisions for publication as amended, just with that one correction.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Peter, second by Jean. Is there any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Okay. Thinking none, I think we're ready to vote. So once again, this is a roll call. Anne Marie,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
MJ votes yes. 500. And Marlene, can you confirm that now that we finalized that goes publication on our page or something?
Yes, that'll get uploaded to the website.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much. Okay. So 7 o'clock. So is there someone here from the Housing Authority to call their meeting to order? You can unmute yourselves.
I'm under Linda Henderson. I'm Thomas Spence, Chair of the Housing Authority.
Okay. You're calling your meeting to order? And you have a quorum? You're muted.
Kathleen Durant is here.
Michael Kamen's here too.
And Thomas Spence, right? Okay. Okay. Excuse me. Is there anyone else from the Housing Authority present?
I thought I saw Kara here, but
She's here, but she's not a member of the Housing Authority, is she? She's
Correct.
the
correct.
executive director, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that's a quorum. Is 3 of you a quorum?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So the item before us is to discuss and possibly vote on the appointment of Jay Knowles as a member of the Housing Authority for the unexpired term, which will be until the next election on May 20th, 2025. Jay, do you have anything you would like to say? Introduce
Not at-
yourself and
Not
Go
at
ahead.
this moment.
you have to unmute yourself. Should be on the bottom left of your screen.
Yes,
There you
I
go.
have it.
There, okay. Would you
Yeah,
like to introduce yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, Jay Knowles. I have nothing to say right now.
Okay. All right. Kara, can you just before we entertain a motion for the appointment, can you explain the process for becoming a housing authority member, like what training they have to go through and when they can start making votes? Can you unmute yourself, Kara? Oh, she's here.
Madam Chair, she says she's having audio issues.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
chat, she said just give her a
Yeah,
few
we don't
minutes.
do, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
it's
Peter.
Peter. Can I ask the applicant a question while we're waiting for Kara to come?
Certainly.
Jay, can you tell me what you think your role would be as a commissioner on the Bourne Housing Authority? What would what is your responsibility?
Well, I would want to help my neighbors. Primarily help my neighbors and the Bourne Housing Authority.
All right, maybe I'll ask it this way. Your role at your monthly meeting is to, to pay, is to approve warrants for payment. You also approve, the capital plan. You have a budget, that you approve every month. You also have a yearly performance review when you review Kara, and then there's some other stuff that goes with it. But some of the confusion sometimes is people think commissioners can tell the staff what to do, and that's further from the truth, because I was a commissioner for over 16 years, and we had some problems like this in the past with some former members. So I just want to put it out there that you have limited scope, other than with the director when you give her yearly review. I just wonder if you understand that.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
I don't know that Kara's able to,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes, there you go.
My apologies.
Oh, that's all right, it happens.
Kara Galasso Garcia, Executive Director, Bourne Housing Authority. MJ, I'm sorry, could you repeat what you asked me?
I just asked if you could just explain the onboarding role for the housing authority members, the training that they have to go to, and
So the training, there is a Board of Commissioners training that is offered through different Mass Narrow and different other agencies. Training is required annually. And then in addition to that, excuse me, there is the ethics training course on the state of Massachusetts that needs to be done annually.
okay. Is the training for on the role of the members? Do they have to complete that training before they vote?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Must be completed beforehand.
Okay. All right. So if Jay is appointed, he'll get an appointment slip to get sworn in, but then he has to, I guess, send that in to get onto the training before he can actually vote at the meeting.
Yeah, once approved, I will send out the information for what he needs to take care of before he can come to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion from the select board members?
No.
Any discussion from the members of the housing authority?
No.
Okay. Is this, I believe this is one vote taken of all 8 people, right? So is there a motion to appoint?
I guess I'll make the motion to appoint. This is Michael Kamen making the motion to appoint.
Okay, motion by Michael Kamen to appoint Jay Knowles for the term to expire on May 20th, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kathleen Durant. Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none. This is a roll call vote. So Thomas Spence, you're gonna have to unmute yourself so we can hear your vote. So Kathleen.
Yes.
Michael Kamen.
Yes.
Thomas Spence.
Yes.
Anne Marie Saronian.
Yes.
Gina Zarovitz.
Yes.
Peter Meyer.
Abstain.
Melissa Ferretti.
Yes.
And MJ will vote yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. And so the appointment slip will go out from the town administrator's office. Is that correct? Yeah. And so the first thing you have to do is go to the town clerk's office and get sworn in. And then you have to follow the information that Kara gives you for training. So welcome to the board and thank you for volunteering.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
All right. Now wait.
Thank you.
You guys have to adjourn your meeting. The housing
make a
authority has to adjourn your meeting and take a vote.
Make a motion to adjourn the housing meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
You have to roll call. Sorry, it's Zoom.
Tom?
Aye.
Kathy?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So
Unanimous.
3-0-0. Unanimous, Richard. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You could all make it this time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, next item on the agenda is budget review and discussion, proposed FY26 operating enterprise and capital budgets. Marlene, do you have anything to say, or we're just going to start with the library?
So we'll just jump right into it. I do want to give the board members the page numbers. I neglected to put that on the agenda, and I also neglected to put them in order. I apologize for that. But if I can just give everyone the page number so you can follow along using the document on the website. The library begins on page 115 of 154. And I'll turn it over to Iria.
Okay, good evening. Thank you. I'm happy, I think, to be the first one up. Quick comment on FY24 for us was very, very challenging. We had calendar year 24. There were very few weeks that we were ever fully staffed because of medical issues, some serious, some extended. And I just want to put that out up front that when you look at our 2024 expenditure and our 2025 expenditure so far, you're already going to see that we're down in some lines and over in some others, and that's the reason. So saying that, jumping into personnel, it's a totally level service budget this year. The salary adjustments that are presented tonight are only the things that are contractual obligations because there is no CBA in place yet for FY26. These are just reflecting the step increases. So the first item, we have a total of 8.4 full-time equivalent employees. So 1 department head, we have 3 supervisors, 5 clerical library assistants, and we have 3 substitutes. You'll see in the 2025 expenditure, we have really blown through our sub budget and it's only January. But again, that was because we were trying to cover people who were out on FMLA and things like that. So overall, our salary request is 2.15%. Of course, that will change once the collective bargaining agreements come through. Moving on to purchase of services, buildings and grounds, no increase. The only item that really is worth I guess discussing is the increase. Data processing, very archaic term. That's actually all of the electronic databases, digital collections, and it's different than our ebooks. And I want to kind of stress that these are things that are not checked out. These are things that are available. So think about Consumer Reports, Cape Cod Times, Wall Street Journal, Ancestry.com. So those are things that are accessible to everybody. And there are no checkouts. So that goes under the data processing line. You'll see later that we have an ebooks line. The total increase in that section for purchase of services is 3.63. If anybody has any questions on the other lines, miscellaneous equipment is a placeholder for rentals. We've never had to do it, but it is a 250 placeholder. Going on to supplies. I'm just going to push my glasses up. Office supplies and copier. We've gone to the same copier that the town has, which should save us some money in terms of the service contract and also the paper supplies. We're looking at an increase, very small increase of $100. Building equipment and operational supplies. So you say, what's an operational supply? These are the things, again, things that check out, things that don't. These are the library cards that we are required to provide. These are the item barcodes that we scan when you check them out. These are the spine labels on the bottom of the books. Book repair, the packaging for our library of things. So those are really operational costs that can't be tucked into any other line. Moving down to books, this is the first year that we've split, and it's more than books. Physical items from the electronic items. We did it for a couple of reasons. One, just to see where is our money going in a really easily tracked manner. And also there are changes in the state reporting. what are we spending on ebooks versus physical books? I think it's noteworthy that in terms of circulation, this is the first year that e-circulation has surpassed physical circulation. So last year, we checked out 140,000 digital items. So that's ebooks, audiobooks, films, and we only circulated 96,000 physical items, books, DVDs, audiobooks, things like that. I believe the last time I was here, it was close and physical items were ahead. But this is really the future. This is the way it's going. And I think the decision to split print materials and physical materials from ebooks was the right move. So we're looking for a small increase in the physical items, 4.9%, about 2,900, which was the estimate that was given to us by our book vendors and our DVD vendors and our other vendors. Going over to magazines, you'll see that it's level funded. Currently, we have about 120, 125 print magazines and periodicals. A few of them have ceased publication and gone only to the digital platform, which we pay for from the data processing line. So they all kind of tie in together. And that's why that's a level funded request, because I think that number is going to drop to about 116 next year. The next item is the ebooks, and this is 65,000. We are on track. I expect that total line is going to be closer to 70. We'll see what the circulation is right now. If you give me 1 second. Oh, where is it? Right now, we average 4,000 checkouts per month of books, audios, and films. That's between Hoopla, Libby, Canopy, and those items. And you say, well, that's a crazy number of items. The bummer is that we have anywhere from 400 to 500 items per month that people are waiting for, and the average wait time is 94 days. By the time you place the hold and get it, it's no longer a bestseller. So we're still trying to find a method with clams, because that's how we purchase these items or lease these items, on how we can make those hold lists a little bit shorter. There are people who come in who during COVID switched to the electronic versions, and sometimes they come in and they bemoan, I'm so far down on the list. And we say, probably a week if you go with the print book. So we've swung the pendulum back this way to get those wait lists shorter. Miscellaneous supplies. Those are things that are, again, things that get checked out and then things that support other programs. Miscellaneous supplies include anything involved with story time, arts and crafts, summer reading. When we join the summer reading program, the posters, the bookmarks, the prizes, all of that. And then the Library of Things, which was the new initiative last year. It's been weirdly successful in areas that we never expected. The metal detector is the most popular item, followed by the karaoke machine, followed by the sewing machine, followed by the KitchenAid attachments. The karaoke machine during the summer was constantly booked to the point we considered buying a second one because there was a wait list for that. It kind of died off after summer, which is great, but we're still seeing people. Just last week for the all the planets that were on, we had people calling and requesting the telescope, but it was already out. So I think people are getting the word that Library of Things is there, because that initial year was a full funding of, we needed the packaging and everything else. This year's request is $500 less, and that is $1,000. Then closing it out, travel, in-person meetings within the consortium and within the state are now resuming. Last year we had very little travel. And as I mentioned, because of all of the people that were out sick and trying to keep the building open, none of us went to any in-person meetings, trainings, conferences, and that impacted both our travel line and our dues line. So I realized I kind of flew through that. Any questions? Oh, so things that you might want to know. Last year we offered 6,000 we had 6,000 participants for programs. Of that, about 4,800 were in person and the rest were virtual. So that's something that's kind of seeing a trend also. These were things that there was a woman that did a presentation on the history of tea, and the different flavors of tea and the types of tea. She sent us all the materials. I can't remember where she was from. We had the tea, we had people in the building with us doing it virtually, and then there were people that were at home doing it. We've had book authors, we've had other types of discussions, history. So I think we're kind of hitting a balance of virtual programs and in-person programs. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the Friends of the Library. There are about 250 members, and they support us about $20,000 a year. So 6,000 to 7,000 is museum passes, which are discount passes or free passes to local attractions, Heritage Museum, New Bedford Whaling Museum, Boston Children's Museum of Fine Arts, Isabella Stewart Gardner, all of those. They fully fund those. And then they also fund all of our programs. So I know I mentioned program costs before. These are the actual presenters. So whether it's the judge who came and gave talks or musical performers, anything involved with summer reading, the flying dogs, all of those are funded by the Friends of the Library. And that group is really struggling with membership. So if I could do a shout out to anyone who has some spare time and energy to help them, because they do a great job for us. And we would not be able to offer the breadth of programs that we do without their support. Those items are not in the operating budget. Anybody have any great questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I do have a question. Does this budget meet the requirements for certification?
Yes. So it meets the MARC, the municipal appropriation requirement, and it also meets the materials requirement. And then once the collective bargaining items go up, that will adjust it a little bit too.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for a very enthusiastic budget presentation. Appreciate it.
I am excited. We're turning the corner in so many ways. We're close. And the fact that our attendance is back to pre-COVID levels, that having kind of been plopped into that COVID situation and not knowing will we ever recover, was really discouraging after 25 years in the profession. So it's great to see it back.
That's great. And just before we go in, just for anyone that's listening, for when it comes to the collective bargaining agreements, there is a one lump sum item that's been set aside for the collective bargaining agreement. So none of the increases for the collective bargaining have been included in the budget line items yet. They will be portioned after the collective bargaining agreements are complete. Peter, you have a question, comment?
No, it's just a statement. I just want to say thank you, Area, and for you and the staff for all that you do over there. I know it was a challenge when you had your one staff member out on FMLA, but everybody else stepped. And, so it's it's amazing you were able to produce provide services with those limitations at times. But I really appreciate all that you do, and it's great that we can give back to the community. So it's a kudos to you and your staff members over there to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we will move on to the police department. Thank you very much. Chief Esup.
And sorry. And the police department budget starts on page 74.
I'd like to thank everyone for having me tonight. So we're presenting this year a request for just shy of $6.2 million in our budget. We now have 57 employees with our department. There was an increase of one lieutenant in last fiscal year, and that lieutenant was recently promoted, so he's now taking that position. We have had some personnel adjustments. We have some retirements coming up this year. Our command staff will have a whole new look to it with the introduction of Lieutenant Doherty and Lieutenant Cox, rounding out myself and Lieutenant Economides. Also, we have a group of new sergeants. So Sergeant Mangachi, Sergeant Parsons, Sergeant Peasy, Sergeant Peasy, and Sergeant, there'll be one more to be named later. So those are all new names to our command staff that all require training, time. Essentially our sergeants, a good portion of them will have less than a year on in that position. So that is something that I'm excited about, but it also is going to be some learning curve for them. And that's reflected in some of our budget for on a training end of it. So I'll start first with our salaries. 5111, department head. Increase in there is contractual, and that's the majority of most of the salary changes. Anything in the 5100 series is going to be mainly contractual obligations, with some minor adjustments for some grant funding that we had. Next line is lieutenant and sergeants. We were able to reduce this from our initial request based upon those retirements that I talked about. People that have been on for some time that have master's degrees or other incentives are being replaced by those with less longevity and in some cases lower steps. So on the lieutenant end of it, we have a master's degree replaced with somebody with a bachelor's degree. So there's some cost savings there. Overall, that was an increase of $55,000, which was about $30,000 less than we initially anticipated. For our salaries, clerks, administrative assistants, dispatches, this is lump sums our civilian staff together, both those working in dispatch and those that are assisting us in records and myself. There was an overall reduction to this line, and that was accomplished by applying all of our expected 911 grant to the line. So we've received $105,000 every year, and usually we use a portion of that to replace MDTs and other dispatch equipment based upon our current needs in the department. We're able to defer that for one more year and apply all of it to salaries. So you do see a slight reduction in that line. That would likely come back into the budget next year as part of a request. So that reduces the line by $43,800. Police officers, there's a increase in that line by $26,000. Again, that's strictly due to step increases. Yet to know the actual COLA or anything else like that. 5118 summer officers. So this is a new initiative that we had in this year's budget, and we are asking to increase the hourly wage for our summer officers by $2 from $21 an hour to $23. That's to remain competitive with the other departments on the Cape that have gone into a community service officer program. Our program's been very successful with a good number of the people that have taken that role or worked as a summer officer before we had that program, later becoming Bourne police officers, including myself. I started as a parking enforcement officer, summer officer for a few months, and it really got the hook into me to want to be with this department. Fast forward to a summer officer that we had last year. She recently contacted me to express her interest to join our department. She's taking the civil service exam, and I anticipate that she'd likely show up on the next list. So it's a great way to really build in a time where it's tough to get new police officers and recruit them. It really forms a good bond, and also they learn our system, so it makes the learning curve a little easier for when they do get hired. So that does increase that by $2,000. Clothing and cleaning allowance, that's contractual. There's a $3,000 increase there based upon the number of officers that elected to go with a purchase order for next year. So we have two options: purchase order, or they can get a lump sum in their check. There was an increase in the number of officers that wanted the lump sum in their check, and that's what this line reflects, is the amount of money that the officers would get paid that have elected the lump sum. Overtime and wages, that's generally been static over the past few years. We had a slight increase, I think last year or the year before, and generally that is underfunded, but we utilize the salary from unfilled vacancies and other excess in personnel services to offset that. And then we work with administration and finance to figure out the best way of funding that as it gets towards the end of the year. Typically, we're in the $700,000 to $800,000 range for our overtime, and I expect that to continue in the next few years. Longevity, there was a slight increase there for contractual by $200. Differential pace, there's an increase in that by $5,000 based upon salary adjustments over the year, an increase of use of this line. So when I say increase of use, the officers have the opportunity to, after 10 AT days, they can either use those AT days or they can get paid back for them. There's less use of the time and more use of the pay for that. So that's an area we've noted increase. The other thing that comes out of that line is our field training officer stipend. And that's a stipend that an officer has that is helping with training the new officers in the department. With the amount of officers we've been training, there's an increase in the number of people that are getting paid that stipend. And other things in that line would be OIC pay. So what that is when myself or one of the lieutenants is on vacation and somebody has to step into that position, they have a stipend per contract. And so I just wanted to make sure we accounted for that appropriately based upon previous year's use and expected use for future years. The cumulative times on line we used in 5144 holiday pay dispatchers, that can fluctuate every year. I'm level funding it right now, but we won't know until the actual holiday comes. They have until the day of the holiday to tell us if they want to get the pay or get the time. So this is based upon prior year's usage, so we'll keep that level funded. Then we move into purchases of services. So on this, we have R&M building grounds. That's items in our building and grounds that are specific to the police department. So our Milo, which is our virtual range, our firing range, not the HVAC portion of it, but the actual cleaning of the range and the actual range equipment. Our key system, which is a system that we use to keep track of the numerous keys we have in the department and make sure they get returned properly. Fitness equipment, and then miscellaneous other police department equipment repairs. We've seen some of those items that were purchased with the building starting to need a little bit more TLC. So that's why there's a slight increase to this line. R&M autos, again, this is vehicle repair and replacement of non-motorized vehicles, bicycles, and police-specific items in those vehicles. So it would cover our bicycle fleet. It also covers insurance deductibles. Minus a recent accident we had, our number of accidents our police officers have been into has actually decreased since we've moved to the Durangos. There's a lot more safety features in those vehicles, and I think that's a portion of what can be credited for why that number's down. 5246, our machine repair contract, a slight increase there by 1,000, again because of increased costs and services that we have. But that line covers our copier, which still falls under us. We just renewed, we got a 3-year contract for one of our copiers. And it also covers our generator that we have on site, the maintenance agreement with that, our radio repairs, and then also miscellaneous repairs to other equipment in the building. Rentals, we have 2 trailers that we keep on site. Now we have emergency management. We have some additional emergency management equipment, but we also have a lot of bicycles that get turned in and other large items that we wouldn't want to necessarily place into our evidence room that could contaminate the room. So we have 1 trailer that is for large evidence items or property items, and we have another trailer that is for traffic supplies and emergency management supplies. So there was a slight increase to that to accommodate the increased cost related to those rentals of $600. Services medical, flatlining that one for this year. I don't expect any additional costs, hopefully. Another one that can fluctuate, but hopefully everyone stays healthy. But this also covers our new hires with their medical exams, their fitness for duty, psychological exams. There is a potential that there could be some additional requirements on the department in the future. I don't have any information on that yet, but they could require, this post could be requiring some additional testing. But as of right now, that's not reflected in this budget. 5304 consultants, we use that. That's a catch-all for any of the time we need a audio recording to be transcribed, or if we need language services. Oftentimes you'll see that one gets returned at the end of the year, but it's a catch-all in case we need those services. When we do need it, it gets used up very quickly. Data processing, as Ari mentioned, it's a line that's kind of old verbiage. We call it IT services, and law enforcement's use of IT has increased throughout the years, and it's not going away anytime soon. And then the cost of those services continues to increase at a eye-boggling rate. So the $2,000 increase in here is generally tied to contractual or service increases. I will note that one of those increases was because we needed additional bandwidth due to our body worn and cruiser worn camera system that we have. We deployed the system and then quickly found out that the existing service plan we had with Cape Internet was too slow. So there was moving to the next tier was kind of like when you move to the next tier with Comcast. It gets a little higher than you'd expect, but that is accounted for in here. It also covers all of our IT infrastructure for the security on that, the firewall, backup system. It also, another portion of this that is a pretty significant portion, about $35,000 in the upcoming budget, is our security system, our building security system. That includes all our cameras, the maintenance of those, the service on them, all of our door access, and the software and licensing for those things, which software and licensing on that security equipment is quite expensive. Then we have our professional development line. This was had a slight increase this year of 2,500. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is to help with keeping those new officers appropriately trained, and making sure they're ready to do the job that they have. It's a vital role that they have of supervising the young officers in our department, and I want to make sure they continue to have those skills necessary to effectively perform their duties and keep the town out of litigation. Services and insect control, flatline that's for the Terminex to treat our building. And 5321, service accreditation, that's a steady on that one, so no changes there. But that's to make sure to keep our department associated with the Massachusetts accreditation. There'll be some changes to that coming in the next year or two, because that is also falling under police reform. So we're keeping our eyes on that. Communications telephone is another large one for us, $14,500 increase to that line. Again, that is mostly due to increased service costs. The biggest portion of that is moving our copper lines, which was a project that started 2 years ago, and hopefully we'll be finishing it this spring, over to fiber because of Verizon killing off their copper lines in the area that power our radio systems. So that is approximately $10,800 a year, which is up from the $7,200 we were paying on the copper lines. Other things covered by that, other department cell phones, our fiber to 1, 2, 3, 4 different locations in town for radio service, our elevator copper line, our phone system for the building, our fax, our backup cloud system. Then on postage, that's staying steady. That covers our mailing of items. Mainly, it covers the cost of mailing out our license to carries, which is a significant undertaking. Right now, we have one sergeant that oversees that with some assistance from patrol, but they're frequently, I think we're getting about 25 or 30 applications a week, and that involves quite a bit of time from them, but they do have to mail stuff out with that. Printing services, that's a $1,700 increase for that. So this is a line that also combined some money from EM when that was merged into us. So looking at the existing documentation that EM emergency management had, some of it's outdated, and I wanted to make it a project next year to bring that current and catch all the make sure the public is properly informed. So that $1,700 to help offset that. Advertising is staying. That moves us into our supply line. So on office supplies, keeping that level. 5435, building equipment supplies other. A slight increase to that by $2,000. That one covers our department specific items, specifically that are not covered by facilities. So flags, radio repair parts that are not covered by a contract, filing cabinets, shelving, storage, dispatch furniture, keys, whatnot. And again, that comes into the increase, and that comes into the items that are starting to have some wear after being in operation for 24/7. Vehicle supplies, special purchase. This is specifically the vehicle supplies in the vehicles that are police related. Our radar units, our emergency gear for rescue kits, MDTs, mounts, other police access fleets, also to help outfit our bike fleet as well. So that's going to be same level this year. Increase of $1,000 to 5539. That's our traffic equipment. We noticed looking at that was a line that had $1,000 for a budget, but that covers all of our traffic cones, our barricades, and most of our wooden barricades are now 25 years old or so, and they've had better years. So we're going to be looking at trying to slowly start replacing out some of that. So hoping that extra money there will help do that. DP supplies equipment. So this is essentially, we have the data processing. This is essentially the IT supplies. We're starting to have some computers that are, after being in operation, have needed replacement for the last 4 to 5 years. The other thing that's on our radar is that Windows 10, which is on some of our older PCs that were moved over here, is no longer going to be supported at the end of this calendar year by Microsoft. And most of those devices that have Windows 10 are not compatible with Windows 11. So we're looking at having to get a new computer as opposed to just updating the software. So that's why I've been looking at some additional funding there of $2,000. And 5580 books, slight increase there just due to the cost of books. So we notice a slight increase in those. But that covers our law books that we give to officers to reference, traffic stop books, stuff like that. 5585, that clothing equipment. This is the sister to the one that's in the personnel services. This is for the actual purchase orders. It's also for department uniform equipment. So purchasing new uniforms for officers, and bulletproof vests not covered by a grant. Other items that's going to be level funded from previous year. 5594 is one of the larger ones in this section that has increased. We're asking for a $29,168 increase there. That is, this operational covers our ammunition, all the additional costs for operation of the department, like prisoner meals and items like that. The majority of this increase here is related to the increase in ammo, which we brought up last year, and increased again this year. But also we have a $15,000 accounts for 500 rounds per officer to get trained on the new rifles that we're going to be purchasing. That was a project that was approved at last Capitol, but I need to make sure each of those officers has some time on those rifles to make sure they're comfortable with them and accurate. And ammunition for rifle rounds is for a box of 500 is $300 per box. Also, for each officer that goes through the academy that we hire, they need to have 2,000 rounds of pistol ammunition and 2,000 rounds of rifle ammunition, for a total of just shy of $2,000 per officer that we hire. So those are all things that are accounted for in this. The other portion that's operational is also covering all of our emergency management responsibilities. And looking at the signboards that we have in towns, some of the signboards that were purchased with service plans will be coming due for renewal, and we need to get those service plans continued. So that is budgeted into this line. And then we have our other charges, 5700 series. That is, we asking an extra $1,000 for travel due to increased training and traveling involved in that. And then $1,000 extra for dues because of the cost of several of our professional memberships that we have had increased. Those professional memberships do have a offset of savings in some cases, because the training that we can offer here will also often get a discount if we have a certain membership. And that's about the summary of what we have for increases. I'd be open to answer any questions the board or anyone else might have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from the board? Peter?
Thank you. Chief, the number for overtime was like a little over 500,000, I think, for last year. Is that a realistic number, or do you foresee the number going up or staying under that for this coming up budget?
So that number is generally underfunded, and we use we offset it in other parts of the budget if that happens. We generally go between 600 and 800,000 for overtime. I don't anticipate that changing, but we've always been able to work very well with the administration and finance to make sure that we've monitor it, we stay on top of it, and we're able to make sure it still stays funded appropriately through the town's budget.
Now, are you fully staffed at this point?
At this point, no, we're not. We had some recent retirements, and so right now we have 4 openings. We have we're going through backgrounds right now. The goal is always to be fully staffed, but that's probably going to be at the beginning of next fiscal year that we're looking at as a reality.
Thank you, Chief. Doing a great job, and keep it up.
Thank you very much.
Anne Marie?
Sure. The 911 grant, has that always been used for salaries? Is that 911 grant specific for salary use, or what's it been used in the past?
Yep. So we traditionally use anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 of that grant for dispatch salaries. The other portion of it can be used. Now, it can be used all of it for salaries, or it can be broken up for equipment as well. The equipment can be used. It has to be dispatch related equipment. So there's one year that we bought purifiers for the dispatch room. Once our dispatch furniture starts to get to the point where we need to replace it, I'll be looking to tap into that to help offset the cost of the dispatch consoles. Our MDTs, which we put in our cars, used to be a separate capital item, probably going back now 4 or 5 years ago. We were able to start purchasing those from this grant to remove that from a capital item. So every year we get a new MDT for the car and build that into use the grant. This year our current inventory of MDTs is functioning and working very well. I don't see a need to use any equipment. All the dispatch equipment looks good, so I'm very comfortable with using all of it for dispatch salaries next year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you, Chief. Excellent job explaining everything in excellent detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Department of Natural Resources.
And
Page
that is,
85.
yes.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. All right. So I'll start with salaries. Like was mentioned previously, any changes will be due to the collective bargaining agreement. They're just based on changes in the department. That number presently is lower for existing staff. However, we do have a new budget initiative for an additional administrative assistant to help cover the front desk counter area and take on some of the other administrative tasks that are divided otherwise through the department. We rely a lot on our maintenance natural resource officer to help cover the front desk and help with customer service. We have another initiative that we are looking to take on this year for a shorebird monitoring program for piping plovers, an endangered species that we have nesting on our beaches here. So with the start of that program, it would require more hands-on in the field experience from the natural resource officers on maintenance. So taking away that additional resource that we would otherwise have to be in the office to assist with that. So those are two of the initiatives that we have in for this year. The next increase that we have is a request for an increase in holiday pay, particularly with the summer holidays. We may require anywhere from 2 to 3 natural resource officers to be on duty to help patrol, whether they're covering the patrol boat shifts or just generally on the road, animal control. With traffic, we may need one officer on one side of the bridge and the other on the other side. So that increase would allow us to have better spread for those particularly busy summer holidays. Okay. So one of the next increases that was a request was for expenditures such as our dues for the Harbor Master Associations, the two that we belong to, the Buzzards Bay Task Force and the Cape and Islands Harbor Master Association. Both have projected increase their dues for the coming year. So there was a $300 request for an increase in that line. The next increase is requested in the contracted services and purchases. So this particularly has to do with boarding of animals at the Animal Inn. This past year, they had a $45, they went from $30 to $45 a day for boarding. So they had quite the jump. So we'll go over that this year, just considering that increase that the organization had. And the increase accounts for the same amount of days that had been budgeted in the past. So that's an increase of 1,250 to cover the same amount of days to board any impounded animals that we have that are taken into the department. Next, there are some increases in the marina budget. The first one is R&M floats, docks, ramps purchases. So that's an increase to $1,000. So this covers repairs to electrical cables and floats, decking, frames, flotation, cleating systems, chain shackles, and piling guides. As the marinas are getting older, there are more and more opportunities to fix things. So that would cover the costs of any repairs that need to be addressed as far as the marinas. For our contracted services at the marinas, had a request for an increase of $3,000 for a total of $10,000. So this covers contracts of waste disposal, security for the buildings, building and ground surveillance contracts. For the 2024 fiscal year, we spent $15,941. So it's really challenging to figure out what that exact number is going to be, just as things change and different situations come up, whether security systems need to be repaired, addressed. That certainly fluctuates quite a bit. And the next request was for an increase of $2,000 for the banking and purchases of service, for credit card processing fees, for gasoline sales and transient rental sales. Over the last few years, the cost of that has continued to increase. So the $13,000 should hopefully cover those fees. All right. So the next increase that we have is for resale fuel at Taylor's Point, for an increase of $41,000 to $305,000. So in 2024, we spent $144. And this is the fuel that's purchased at the marina for resale for customers that are using it. Again, this is something that's going to fluctuate, really year to year, just depending on if it's a good boating season or, just in general, how often folks are getting out on the water. But usually we have a lot of folks that like to fill up and get gas because of the convenience. So that is always something that fluctuates at our marinas as well. Next, there's an increase in the uniforms and supplies under the marina budget, and that's from $1,000 to $2,000, so an increase of $1,000. This is to reflect the marina manager uniform allowance, which was not previously included, which is covered under the LIUNA Unit B contract. So usually that was just used for staff uniforms, but she has the marina manager has a clothing allowance as well that wasn't reflected previously. Okay. So next, there's an increase of $1,000. This is for Monument Beach floats, docks, ramps, and other purchases. So, as the same as Taylor's Point, covering, steel dock frame repairs, replacement of the decking, any connection repairs, just general maintenance of the floats as those arise as the marinas are getting older. And finally, the next increase would be for vehicle supplies. So this is gasoline supplies, and this is at Monument Beach Marina. So much like at Taylor's Point, there was an increase in how much fuel was purchased last year as it was, sold to customers utilizing the marina. So the increases for $15,000 bring it to $135,000. And that's the summary of the increases for the DNR budget.
Thank you. Any questions from the board on the DNR budget? I have a question about, I didn't see it in the budget. So I did see where the shorebird monitoring was. This budget is weird because things are broken up in like different subjects, so sometimes it's hard. But you said something about additional administrative help, and I didn't see an increase in that first personnel section.
MJ, I'm happy to speak to that.
Okay.
At this point, that new initiative is not recommended in the budget.
Okay. So I was thinking, I was going to say, oh, wait a minute, maybe I have to go back to those things that are not in there. So it was proposed, but it's not in the budget.
Yep. This is one of the things that
is on your list of, I haven't funded these yet. Yes.
Yeah. It's still on the wish. It's still on the on deck list. It is not reflected in the budget as of today.
All right. Well, thank you. That's why I didn't see it there. Any other questions for Hannah? Thank you. It was a good summary. And I just will note that sometimes when there is an increase in the cost of the fuel on the expense side, it is reflected on an increase in revenue on the revenue side. So you have to look at kind of both. And
right.
The more, yeah.
And we are actually capturing some increase there on the source side.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to determine what the cost of fuel is going to be next August, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, okay. Okay. Any questions from the board for the DNR budget? Okay. All right. I think you're good to go. Thank you very much for a brief summary. That was very well done. Okay. Next item is inspections. Ken.
And that is page 81.
Good evening, Ken. Want to introduce you?
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Okay.
Good. My only increase is adding a full-time building inspector to assist me for future inspections with the growth of our town. I put in a budget for $67,573. And also this would be replacing my part-time inspector. And so it wouldn't really be a major increase to my budget. And that's pretty much all I have on my list.
Right. So the increase is offset by the decrease for the part-time. Okay.
Correct. This would
Any
be somebody that would be here
questions?
for
Yeah.
37 hours a week, obviously, and replacing the other part-time assistant of 21,000. And so that'd be the difference.
Okay. I think there's a lot happening and hopefully a lot more happening. So judging from some of the things we're getting from the sewer department and for requests for allocation. Any questions from the board on the building inspector's budget?
The town is growing fast.
Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. And good luck with increasing your department. I think that sounds good.
Good. Thank you so much.
Okay, next is DPW and sewer, Matt Sawicki.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, DPW starts on page 95 and sewer starts on page 136. Thank you, Matt.
Plus, there's a supplemental packet that has some information in it, but yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, thank you, Matt Sawicki. I'm Public Works Director. So I'll start out with a few points on our budget. The projected budget or proposed budget is $2,934,563. That's an increase of $38,435 or 1.32%. A couple things as we go through the budget. We are looking to combine a few line items, including registrations and inspections, protective clothing, and our fuel expenses will be going to townwide fuel. So as we go through the budget, you may see reductions in certain line items, but they're going to be captured later on in the budget in one line item. So we can start out with the administrative department, administrative section of the budget. We have a contractual obligation of $2,560 in salaries for department heads. We have a small reduction for $1 in longevity. As we move down in the administrative budget, the next change we see is a decrease in $6,500 for telephone expenses. Those are being absorbed by the administrator's office. We also were able to do a small reduction in the printing cost of $150 based on historic trends and historic data. As we continue to move down the administrative budget, our fuel line item is $8,760 has been reduced and has gone into townwide fuel. Our inspection line item has also gone down as that will be captured later on in Public Works. And there was a reduction of $550 in protective clothing. Our total reduction for the administrative section of the budget was $13,581. So we saw a reduction in those line items. As we move to the highway section of the budget, the first paragraph you kind of see is salaries for DPW highway. Those were taken out of there a long time ago and have been moved to Public Works. So the first line item we'll see with a change is actually an increase as to contracted services. So we're asking for an increase of $5,500 in contracted services. We do a lot of our smaller projects out of that. We do all of our line painting. We do a lot of sidewalk repairs and some minor drainage work. The past couple years, if you remember, we had RAP money, which was given to us by the state. We were utilizing that to do some of these projects. So what we'd like to do is just get a small increase to make sure we're still able to do the line painting and projects. We may also try to do some small engineering projects out of this as opposed to taking it out of the Chapter 90 funding. As we move down the highway section of the budget, you'll see reductions in fuel of $6,000 and $56,400 in diesel. Those costs will be coming out of townwide fuel moving forward. So our next, change is a large change. We're asking for $40,000 more in the highway vehicle equipment budget. There were previous kind of practice was to pay for snow and ice vehicles out of the snow and ice budget. We have about 11 vehicles, which are our big 6-wheel dump trucks and sanders. They're primarily only used for snow and ice, so we would take repairs out of those. What we've started doing is taking those costs out of the operational budget. So we'll see an increase of, last year we spent $87,000 out of that line item. But we don't only do the snow and ice vehicles. We also do all of our 1-ton dump trucks, our tree trucks, our Vector truck. So we just want to make sure that we have enough money to be able to do the repairs on all those vehicles as needed. We will still use the snow and ice budget for repairs that come about during snow and ice events or damage that we can directly relate to a snow event. But for the overall maintenance of the vehicles, we'd like to take it out of the operating budget. The next change you'll see is a reduction of $3,300 for vehicle inspections out of highway, which you will also see incorporated later on. Also, the same thing out of highway is the reduction in the protective clothing. So our total, even though we have that $40,000 increase, we do have a reduction in the highway department budget of $27,000, which is mostly because of the decrease in the fuel costs. As we move into sanitation, those salaries have all been moved in a previous budget. The first change you'll see is vehicle parts. We're just asking for a couple $2,000 more increase, just as parts get more expensive and the wear and tear in the vehicles. We just want to make sure we have the funding to support that. Although we do move our inspection, our registration inspection costs for certain sections of our budget, we are leaving it in for sanitation and recycling, as that money is monitored through ISWIM and covered by ISWIM. So we keep those line items in the sanitation and recycling sections of the budget. So you'll also see the fuel is not changed in that section of the budget. However, the personnel does come out of public works, so you will see a reduction in protective clothing. So our total reduction in the sanitation line, sanitation budget was $9,860. Next is vehicle maintenance. We had quite a few increases in vehicle maintenance this year. In the past few years, we have taken on all the budgeting for all the departments, including fire, police, and natural resources. We also were putting through an initiative. We're not looking to add employees, but we would like to offer some promotional opportunities and some increased responsibilities to positions we already have, and kind of create a ladder for morale and just to just keep open the options that people have within the department. So we'd like to create a heavy equipment operator. I'm at a higher level. We currently have 4 mechanics. We have a vehicle maintenance supervisor, and then 3 mechanics are at the same level. Those positions all require a CDL and 1 hoisting license. What we'd like to do is create a heavy equipment operator that not only has a CDL and a hoisting license, but also has a tanker endorsement, and multiple other hoisting license additions to their license, endorsements to their license. So we're seeing a $4,315 increase in that line item. Of that increase, there's a $3,592 increase for the increased position. The next line item you'll see an increase of is $3,000 in the overtime. The vehicle maintenance does put a lot more overtime in than some of the other sections of the budget. We've utilized that overtime expenditures over the past 3 years, so we'd just like a small increase of that to continue to cover those costs. The next is the repair and maintenance of the equipment. This is to cover the costs of the contracted maintenance and repairs to everything that's encompassed in the vehicle area of the garage, including the wash bays, the lifts, the compressors, the cranes, and any equipment that's utilized for any of the vehicle maintenance. So we've seen increased costs in that in the past few years. So based on historic trends and those costs increase, we'd like to increase that line item by $5,000. The next increase you'll see is also another increase for $5,000 for the equipment in the bay. This is for more of the welding equipment, the first aid kits, the supplies, the spill containment, and the hazardous material and handling supplies as opposed to the equipment. We're also seeing increased cost in those, and our historic costs show that we do need to add some money to that line item. So we're requesting an additional $5,000 for that line item. As we move down, the next line item we'll see an increase in is oil. Our oil costs are going up. Historic trends show it. We have add a few vehicles to the fleet also, so we're just looking to offset those costs with an increase to the oil budget. The next line you'll see an increase for is the fire department, fire vehicle parts. We're asking for a $9,000 increase in that line item. The cost for fire parts have gone up quite a bit, significantly. As you know, just recently, the fire department put a reserve fund transfer for just one of their vehicles that was $63,000 to do those repairs. So we'd like to just add this $9,000 based on historic trends and also what we see the price of the parts going up to, just to once again make sure that we're covering as many increases as we can. So as we go down, we'll see that this is the first section of our budget where we see a significant increase of $30,315. Next, we go to Public Works. So you'll see an increase in the Public Works line item of salaries for $14,756. There's actually, based on contractual obligations, there's a reduction, but we are asking for a budget initiative for a third foreman. What we'd like to have is a foreman that will rely on a lot for our MS4 permitting to make sure we're doing we'll monitor the GIS, we'll monitor the maintenance. And also we've had a lot of meetings with safety, and we'd like to have a foreman that's also primarily working on safety and monitoring the safety of all the union staff. So that's a position we would like to. Once again, this isn't an additional position. This is just increased responsibility and promotional opportunities for employees within the department. We had some retirements, so you'll see that our longevity went down $805. Next change you'll see is the vehicle registrations in Public Works. So we lumped all the vehicle registrations to Public Works except for sanitation and recycling. So what you will see is that it's a $7,630 increase. What I will say is this is also a $4,150 increase over the money that was combined. The reason for that is the past few years we've had higher inspectional costs because we've actually had a company come in and do the inspections here, as opposed to having different staff have to go to different garages to have the work done. Although there is a cost increase, it is much more it's much more functional, and we're able to get them all done at once. And then people don't have to go, we don't have to rely on other staff and other departments to go to the different places to get the inspections done. So we'd like to have that increase continue so that we can continue to do it in that manner. And the next increase you'll see is protective clothing. So this is where we took all the protective clothing and lumped it into this line item. So you'll see an increase of $28,650. If you add it all up, that's only an increase of $1,350. And the reason for that increase is this year we have $1,000 per uniform allowance per each employee, and also an additional $350 for safety equipment. Their uniform allowance just covers clothing, sweatshirts, shirts, pants. But the additional $350 for the protective clothing is for vests and ear protection, gloves, rain gear. So although there's a small increase in there, we just want to make sure we can supply the safety gear necessary. So in Public Works, there is an increase of $50,000, $50,231 to that line item. For recycling, we don't see any increases until we get to the data processing. And this is actually a new line item we're adding. We have cameras and tracking systems on all of the sanitation recycling vehicles. Previous years that was taken out of the ISWIM budget, and it was the bills were paid by ISWIM through their administrative department. But in meeting with ISWIM and the town administrator's office, we're going to transfer that responsibility to DPW, but fund it through the ISWIM indirect costs. You will see also a $2,000 increase for parts for the recycling section of the budget, and a small increase, for recycling parts, and a small increase of $130 for inspections for those vehicles. You do see a reduction in protective clothing, as that was also moved to Public Works. So as I mentioned earlier, the total DPW budget is $2,934,563. It's just with an increase of $38,435.
Before we go on to snow and ice, does anybody have any questions or comments about the DPW budget? Melissa?
No, I was just applauding. I think he did a wonderful job, very good job at explaining the shortfalls and any discrepancies there. So thank you very much, Matt.
Anybody else? Peter?
Yes, I was going to ask how the pilot program worked out. I know last year we took on mowing and maintaining the baseball fields. I wonder if we have a chance to expand on that this year to take on any other fields.
So right now we're focusing on the fields we took over last year. If rec wants to reach out to us, I think we're in a very unique position right now, because I don't want to jinx the department. But as of Monday, we will be fully staffed. Won't have any open vacancies. So that does allow us the ability to take more things on. I know there's some open space parcels we've been looking to help out with and maintain a little more. But if there are other departments like us to look at their fields, we'd be happy to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Well, so I want to sort of reiterate the thorough explanations, but also your explanation of the vehicle inspections. That seems to make a lot of sense. It seems that you're doing things in the department to make it run more efficiently, and that sounds really good to me. And I like the idea of creating some of the opportunities for advancement within the department. That's an important step to keep good quality employees in the town. Anne Marie.
Ditto. Just to say that I'm impressed with the way you structured the budget within the DPW to, capture some savings, but also like to move things that didn't belong in recycling and really belong in, public works and vice versa, and working with the ISWIM. It seems as though the structure of this budget reflects the structure of the department itself and its ongoing performance. And I love incentives for employees. especially those that are working hard and seeing areas of need. So to incentivize them is a big plus for the community and for the service that the DPW provides.
Thank you.
Are we planning on doing snow and ice tonight, or is that a separate discussion?
I should actually list that separately. I also have not sent the board the 5-year rolling average yet, so we can pick
Do that
one.
another time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Okay. Any other questions on the DPW budget? And we can go on to the sewer budget, which you said was page 136.
MJ,
Yes,
I'm
Melissa.
going to be getting on the road, so I'm going to log off here and have to log back in from my my device, just so you know. So I'm not leaving. I'm coming right back.
Okay.
Thank you. We're in the middle of a lot, as you know. So thank you. See you in a minute.
So I have a question for the chair. I know there's been we've had a lot of back and forth on the debt. Do we want to talk about that part of the budget? Do we want to talk about kind of 3 things we were going to speak about? I think the Wareham debt, the possible debt with the capital article for the grinder pumps, and then how that plays into the budget. Is there a way you'd like for us to structure the conversation?
So we have pretty much reviewed this budget as sewer commissioners, so I don't necessarily think we need to go over it again as select board members. Is everyone in agreement with that? Yeah, so I think your question is, your point is well taken, Matt. I think talking about the debt, well, I mean, there were a couple things that, and Erica, we have a supplemental packet that for members of the public is posted with the calendar, and it provided some additional information about the sewer budget. So yeah, I do want to talk about the Wareham debt, especially just to make sure that we are monitoring their billing of the debt, because they've had some interesting votes lately at their select sewer commissioner meeting. So
I can shed some light on their votes. So when we received the first set of bills in December, there was a bill that was incorrect. It was for $188,000. So we reached back out to them and they made the change. So when they voted again in either early January or the end of December,
January 9th. Yep, January 9th.
they voted for 2 bills. One was the FY24 bill for the 2022 denitrification filters and the EQ tank number 5. So that was the first payment for that $9 million worth of debt. I believe there was some loan forgiveness in that also. So their vote for $104,163 was for an FY24 bill. We had planned on that bill and had encumbered for it. So we have that money encumbered in the sewer budget. And the second bill they voted for was the $100,210 for the FY25 bill for that same debt. So they never voted to rescind the $188,000, I don't believe, but that was a bill we didn't pay, and they took that off of their records.
Right. So what the challenge of these new projects coming on from Wareham is getting them to bill us in the appropriate budgetary year, and also to notify us while we are building our budget of what they're going to be charging us in the next year. So has there been any further discussion with Wareham about the principle on the $16 million part of the headworks and clarifiers? Because I think they just started that work. I don't see that that's going to be going into next year's budget. Is there been any further discussion on that? I know they've given us it on a schedule, but I don't think it's actually going to happen.
No, so Erica and I spoke just before the meeting, and she did reach out to Wareham. And actually, we won't have any payments due on either of the 30 million or either of the 20 million or the 16 million in FY26. The first payments will be in FY27. But it will most likely be for the total for both loans, for both SRF loans.
In FY27.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just monitoring that project as it goes forward. They just started the Headworks and Clarifiers project in the fall, so we'll see. Erica, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify too that I did reach out and get information directly from SRF. So I got a copy of their temporary schedules, but again, they're just draft Schedule Cs. So as you know, with our own project, they issue them and then things get delayed and they get pushed out. But right now it is showing that both of those are going to go live in fiscal 27. So the good news is they're not going to be an expense in fiscal 26.
Right. And I think because I asked this question at the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, and Nate was on that meeting, and I said it's very challenging for the towns to figure their budget when they don't know when it's actually going to turn over. So he said that it's pretty reliable to know by the end of January, beginning of February, whether or not it's going to start in the next fiscal year. So we just have to watch that next year and see, what we should actually be budgeting for. So that makes sense. So that's good. So that will be coming out of the budget at some point. Yep. I don't know if we want to talk about the grinder pump issues or is that something you want to talk about now, or do we still decide you want to have a sewer commissioners meeting to contemplate that?
That's up to you. I mean, Erica and I ran some numbers. Erica gave us some good schedules, and we did a projected budget out with a couple different options just so you could see how it affects the rates borrowing. I think that if we were going to if we wanted to do a large project, I don't know if the board would possibly entertain a 10-year note, just because I believe that the useful life of the pumps is about 13 years based on talking to the manufacturers and experience and kind of history of replacing the pumps. So I don't know if that's something the board would consider if they wanted to go for the full project, or if they still consider doing it as a smaller project and not borrowing. I mean, as you can see, there will be a lot of debt coming on in the future, not just with Wareham coming on. And there is some offset in the future if we take all those units in. If all the things get built out for the preliminary allocations, you do see that that cost is spread out amongst the users if you did want to do a large borrowing project. But I'd be happy to speak at the next sewer commission meeting if we want to postpone that conversation till then.
Any comments from I mean, I feel that I think the sewer commissioners voted to go in the direction of the borrowing. Is that correct? Isn't that what we did? Rather than using retained earnings. I'm really concerned about allocating 400 and something thousand of retained earnings every year for 3 years when we only have 913,000 of retained earnings. So that to me is of concern. I think it's a large enough project that we have to borrow, and we could supplement some of the borrowing with retained earnings, but how we do it, I thought the 10-year borrowing made the most sense when I looked at the schedule. So, but we should probably have it discussed at the sewer commissioners and then finalize it at another meeting. So, anyone have any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would agree, Mary Jane. We did lean towards the borrowing because we wanted to get the project just done instead of piecemealing it, to borrow it and have it as a lump sum project. And I think 10 years makes a lot of sense. But, that's additional conversation just to take a deeper dive into what we recently received as a supplemental packet
Right.
at our next sewer commissioners meeting.
So my suggestion is, I think at our next sewer commissioners meeting, we could meet, have the adjusted borrowing, taking out the 164 from FY 26, putting it in FY 27, and then look at the 10-year and see how it goes. And we don't make that decision right now anyway on whether it's 10 or 20-year borrowing. Marlene.
I don't necessarily want to change the subject. So if you still want to continue the borrowing, there's just one piece I want to talk to the board tonight about the sewer department budget.
Okay. So we'll leave the capital piece until the next meeting. And I would say keep leaving it as the borrowing project. I think that's what we've kind of done. And we won't finalize that capital until later. Is that fine with everyone? Yeah. Okay. Marlene, what's your question about the sewer budget?
I neglected to include this in my budget presentation last week. I forgot about the enterprise funds a bit. I'm sorry. And I want, just for full disclosure, I want the select board to know that the sewer department budget also has a promotional upgrade going forward for one of those positions as well. So I just wanted to circle back because I forgot to mention that as part of the overall presentation.
Thank you. And I think that was in the supplement, and it's to help monitor that chemical program for preventing corrosion and the sulfide or whatever that was brought up in the MEPA part of our discussion.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Any other questions about the sewer budget or the sewer piece of this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, I think we can move on. Great job, Matt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is finance. Erica, you're back on.
And that's page 53.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. So I'm here now to present the finance department budget. Just a reminder, the finance department is actually 3 divisions. It has the accounting function, the treasury function, and the assessing function. The overall total budget request this year is $1,020,997, or an increase of $7,599. Or 0.74%. Like all the other budgets, this does not include any COLA increases. The budget is level staff. There are no changes in staff. So I'll just take you through each change in line items, starting with the accounting department. We see a large decrease in the accounting department head for the town accountant because we did have a resignation of someone who was at the top step. So we saw some savings by bringing that back down to a step 3 at a maximum. Again, the clerical salaries are just the current movement in steps. And we saw a decrease in longevity because we no longer have a person who earns longevity. Going down, I just want to point out 2 contracted services, 5294. We don't have an appropriation for that, but you are seeing an expense in fiscal 25. And that's because we hired a consultant at the time of the resignation of the town accountant. So that happened pretty quickly. So we wanted to get an interim in here. So that will kind of level out when we make a permanent hire. Okay, so that brings us, we'll go down to the assessing department. Again, no change in staff. You'll see an $11,794 increase in the department head budget. We did include an increase in hours from 35 to 37.5 hours for the assessor. That's a goal that we've been trying to move to as we can afford it. And then we saw a slight increase in his in the 5113 line. Again, just some moving staff lanes, a decrease in the longevity, but I think that may have just been a slight error from the prior year. 5304, services consultants assessor. This is where we pay for PK, which is our assessing valuation contract. So you'll see in fiscal 26, we're getting closer to reval year again, which is in fiscal 28. So we're starting to ramp that up and do more and more inspections. So you'll see that go up $11,590. And then a small increase in dues. That brings us to the Treasury Department. Again, contractual obligations for staff. 5113, we did have an increase in hours for the assistant treasurer collector. And that was the only, salaries were the only change in that department. So again, overall, the finance department budget increased $7,600 or 0.74% as of now. To entertain any questions.
Any questions from the board? I have a question about the implementation of the payroll system, because that's, I think, been a pretty successful change. And I just went through some iterations of, we tried one, it didn't work, we tried it. Yeah, so I just wanted to confirm that we're happy with the way that's all working.
We are very happy with the way it's working. We're very happy with our reorganization last year. Quite frankly, outsourcing payroll has proven itself to be invaluable, especially in recent times, because we were able, without access to certain programs, we still were able to process payroll and there were no interruptions. So that was
crucial.
That was crucial. We all said thank God for Harper's a lot of times this month.
Yeah. I do think that the outsourcing of the payroll is really, especially with all the different things that have to get reported and everything, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I think that was a good move.
Thank you.
I'm glad you found a contractor that was good. Anyway, sounds all good. Any questions from anybody else? All right, then, moving right along. Next is facilities, which Liz, you're up on, and I think it's page 69 of 154.
Yes, thank you.
That's correct. Good evening, Liz Harsgrove, Assistant Town Administrator and Facilities Department Director. The budget tonight that is before you is there are no staffing changes, and it's pretty much level serviced, and we can go through line by line or as far as the changes go. In the first, under the personnel, you'll see a decrease in almost $4,000. That is due to the changes in the facilities manager position. And then with labor facilities, that's an increase due to the contractual obligations and step increases. Shifting down to purchases of services under line item 5239 for MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. That is due, the 5,000 is to bring it up to kind of realistic numbers as far as the cost associated with maintaining the buildings. As you know, there are several buildings that are in need of ongoing repairs, including all 3 fire stations and town hall and all of the other wonderful buildings that are wrapped into this budget. So we're just bringing it up to speed so it's reflective of actual numbers. Scrolling to the next page, you will see an increase going down to the police station, 5240 in the middle to end of the second page, an increase of $3,700 in repairs and maintenance. That again is reflective of accurate numbers and the just the ongoing maintenance issues that we have with that building. It is a 24-hour building, as you know. So, and then scrolling to the final page under custodial supplies at the very last end under library, 5450. That is again just bringing it up to speed on accurate numbers of just adding another $500 for the cleaning supplies of that. And that is it. It's nice and simple this year for you.
Okay, looks good. Any questions from the board? Peter?
Yes, thank you. Great job with facilities with everything that has happened over the last year or so. And I know some of our buildings are getting older, but we're also in the process of planning to build new buildings. And I'm just wondering if long term, if we should start planning for more staff or maybe a restructuring of the facilities department, just because with these new buildings, if they're approved, come online, and then we got to try to make these older buildings last. And I know with the facilities manager or the foreman and then the laborers underneath who have all done great jobs, but I just wondering, in order to have the full efficiency of this department, if we should be planning in the future for more staffing or restructuring so we can keep our buildings in good shape so they can last, the 50 years or whatever the useful life is.
Yeah, as you know, there's a lot of capital requests coming on board for the town meeting, and that will determine what the next steps are for planning personnel support, if new buildings are coming online or not. So, and then also whether or not other additional capital repairs are going to be required. So we will be looking at it. It is, as you can see on the 5-year capital plan, we are thinking about that long term and how we're going to need to be able to support all of those needs. So yes, we are thinking about it, Peter.
Okay. Anybody else have a question or comment? I will say that the charter says that, when you're bringing on a new building, that cost of the maintenance and operations is supposed to be part of the presentation. So it's difficult to do, but it is sort of part of what's supposed to be in the plan. Okay. No other questions? Looks good. Thank you very much. Next is Town Administrator's Office, page 51 of 154.
Thank you. There's 2 changes in this proposed budget besides contractual adjustments. So the first change is an upgrade for the administrative assistant position. And that is really to account for duties that the incumbent has already taken on and is already performing. So we, over the past couple of years, that we have spent a lot of time providing really enhanced support for special events compared to in the past. And we have created an entire new process that this person was critically involved with for marijuana applications. And this position has become, in many respects, our de facto webmaster and is learning the intricacies of all of the details of how to make our website, which I know nobody likes, but how to make it work as well as we possibly can while we still have it. So we are trying to use our tools as efficiently as possible. And she has really proven her willingness to jump in and learn and expand her skill set. So there's an upgrade proposed in this budget for that position. And then the other change is the decrease that you see in contractual reserve. And what the contractual reserve is that is where the department heads bonuses are paid out of. Many of the contracts have a bonus provision. I'm moving away from that as contracts come up for negotiation. And instead, I'm putting those dollars towards the employees' salaries. And I'm doing that intentionally for really kind of a philosophical reason, I would say, is that I don't ever want a department head to feel like they cannot speak their truth or speak their mind candidly and freely because it could be perceived as upsetting to the town administrator, and there could be a financial ramification. I hope we have not actually had that situation, but I can see how it can have a chilling effect. And I would rather move away from the bonus structure, pay the employees a salary, and have as open and free conversation as possible. So those are the only two changes that are not contractually obligated in nature.
That looks like that's it for that budget anyway. I mean, basically,
that's it for that.
No other changes. That is what it is. So are the secretarial, like the recording secretary wages, so that's a lump sum. Is that like working out pretty
Yes.
well? And I'm just yeah, okay. We'll just leave that there.
Yes. We're actually very happy with how that's going. And I at this point, I don't see any need to adjust it.
Okay.
I feel like we're at a good point with that budget.
Okay. Any other questions for the town administrator on that budget? No, it's your changes make good sense. I think they sound good. Okay. Next item is just really comments and questions other than operating, enterprise, and capital budgets. This is sort of before we move on to the next question, which is passing the budget on to the finance committee. Is there anything any select board member wants to comment? Peter.
Yes, I want to, when it comes to the capital facilities, I haven't seen an updated capital plan lately, but I know I have been asking for forever and ever to make sure that the street lights for safety reasons on Main Street are a part of that 5-year plan. I know we're putting some new lights in where the newly constructed intersection was at Academy Drive, but beyond that, I just hope that we can find a way, and that we will plan to extend it further down Main Street sooner than later, just for safety reasons. And people say, "Oh, the property owners to provide light." They do provide lights on their property, but it's not bright enough. And I think we as a community need to provide a brighter light on Main Street for safety reasons, so no one gets injured.
So I do want to let the board know that that has been placed in the DPW capital improvement plan. We are still working on estimates, so I don't have a dollar amount, but it is on the 5-year plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? So I think, as I said last week, that there's still some some things we're going to want to consider in this budget. There's some things that haven't been funded yet. I think we're going to have to, before town meeting, think about if we need to adopt some more money for comprehensive wastewater management or watershed permitting. But I think at this point, I'm comfortable moving this budget forward for the finance committee review, and to say that, before we finalize our final end recommendation, that we'll be revisiting the budget. And if people have questions they want to have answered in the process, that's certainly open. I do want to, I did have a note that I was actually supposed to bring up. I'm not sure. I actually don't think it's in the budgets we talked about tonight, but I just do want to note for the public that we do have a management information budget that's $497,000. And the town has contracted with Barnstable County for IT services. We are one of 6 towns on the Cape that rely on the Barnstable County IT department for services related to IT issues, and that we do have outsourced management of that department that's budgeted at $165,000. And the Barnstable County IT department has 9 people in it, and they are very well equipped and staffed to provide the services that the town needs for IT. So just a note on the budget as a whole. Any other comments on the operating enterprise or capital budgets before we move to our next item? Okay, seeing none. Discussion and possible vote to transmit the FY26 budget proposal to the Finance Committee for their review.
So move, Madam Chair.
Motion by Peter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Melissa. Any further discussion?
With the stipulation that you've already said that this is a fluid and working document at the final number.
Right.
And before
Okay.
probably April.
Okay. Roll call vote. Anne Marie.
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
MJ votes yes, 500. Okay. Next is discussion and vote. Oh, no. Report on the community building HVAC on January 21st, 2025. Madam Town Administrator.
Thank you. So I want to let the board know that early in the day, before the community building was open to the public on January 21st, 2025, the town and our generator contractor were testing the generator and transfer switches. After the load was switched back to street power, the hot water pumps did not reset after the boiler started up. Town staff reset the controls and attempted to restart the pumps, but we were not successful. The system is still under warranty, and we placed a service call to the contractor, who responded that afternoon. Hot water pumps 1 and 2 leading from the boilers were an active under voltage alarm when the service technician arrived. The technician had to perform a hard reset on both pump starters to make them cycle on. To complicate the matter, the automated controls were not sending us alarms because at the time there was no internet connection to the building. We were fortunate to have had in-house staff available who were able to respond quickly. Even with a fast response, however, the outside air temperature was very cold that day and the building quickly lost residual heat. We are working with the contractor to understand if there are changes we should make to the system to force the pumps to restart automatically in the case of a power outage, or if there are other precautions we can put in place to prevent this from happening again. I do understand that people were uncomfortable in the building on January 21st, and I apologize for the low temperatures. This was not intentional, and the system did perform as designed, absent the lack of internet. This power loss was an important learning experience for us, and we have a clearer understanding of the limitations of this system, as well as how to respond more effectively. In many ways, we are fortunate that this was a controlled power loss that occurred early in the morning on a cold day, when the building was occupied. We were able to notice and address the dropping temperatures before any serious damage occurred. This could have been a much worse situation if the building lost power overnight during the weekend and we had frozen pipes. Again, I am sincerely sorry for the temporary discomfort, and we are committed to learning all of the intricacies of the system so that we are able to better operate as efficiently and effectively as possible for the town.
Thank you. Okay, next item. Town Administrator's Report.
I'm sorry, I lost it. Well, I have two actually. So let me start with the one I can find right away. I want to give you one is a verbal report and one is a written report that I will post to the website. I'm going to give you the written report first, which has 3 items. The first, I'm happy to report that on Friday, January 24th, the town officially purchased and closed on the property at 171 Clay Pond Road as the home of a new fire station. Secondly, I would like to report that earlier this afternoon, I received correspondence from the Cape Cod Commission regarding the Select Board's discretionary referral of 829 Scenic Highway. The commission meeting to consider the request is tentatively scheduled for February 27th at 3 p.m. and the commission is requesting additional information from the board. I will be requesting time on an upcoming agenda so that we can discuss how you would like to proceed with this. Finally, the fire department has been awarded $19,000 from the Safety Equipment Grant Program, which provides reimbursement for the purchase of essential turnout gear, hoses, nozzles, communications equipment, and tools, with scoring focused on those items that help the department meet current NFPA and OSHA standards. Secondly, I would like to provide you a verbal report. And I want to report that the town has experienced a cybersecurity event that is affecting the operability of a limited number of systems and services. We are working diligently to investigate this matter with the assistance of third-party specialists and to restore full functionality as quickly as possible. The Bourne Police Department is also coordinating with federal law enforcement to investigate this matter. We have significant resources devoted to this process, and our work to resolve this issue is ongoing and unceasing. Please note that a very limited number of services may be delayed as we continue to investigate and respond to the disruption. The event has not impacted the police department, ambulance, fire, or other emergency services. Likewise, we continue to clear snow, pick up trash, and provide sewage disposal. We are able to meet payroll obligations, and we are able to accept and process payments in person at Town Hall, online through the website, as well as the lockbox. Our phones, email, and website are all also available and reliable. This is a very fluid situation with changes occurring daily, multiple times daily. If you have a specific question about a particular service, please call the department that provides that service directly for the most up-to-date status and any special instructions at this point. We sincerely appreciate your patience during this time.
Thank you. Next item is minutes. We have the minutes of December 10th and December 17th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented for December 10th and December, what was the other date?
17th.
17th, sorry.
It's okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Who was the first second? Who was the first second? Jean?
Yeah, sure.
It's a tie. Tie goes to the vote.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call. Anne Marie,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
MJ, yes, 500. Okay. Next item is committee reports. It's a long meeting here.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Very quick.
Yes. Last week, we all were up in Boston at the Mass Municipal Association. And as part of that, I met with my Transportation and Public Works Subcommittee, and we have a robust agenda going forward for the next 12 months. And once we set that agenda, I'll make sure we all get it. You all get it.
Thank you. Correspondence?
Correspondence, January 28th, 2025. A, Algonquin Gas Letter, Bridge Relocation Project. B, DEP Letter, Annual Land Use Control Report 2023. C, Upper Cape Tech Minutes 12/12/24. D, Xfinity Channel Change Info 1. E, Xfinity Channel Change Info 2. F, Bourne Breakfast Club email. G, William Gibbons Talent Bank, COA. H, Waterways Regulation Application, 0 Pasture Road. I, Waterways Regulation Application, 12 Briarwood Lane. J, Mass Department of Public Utilities right-of-way comments. And K, Waterways Regulation Application for 18 Wings Neck Road.
Thank you. Future agenda items related to correspondence or other items for future discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Peter.
I'll be quick. Last week we were hit with a surprise that the Pocasset Mental Health Center is in the process of being closed due to budget cuts. This has affected a lot of people emotionally in the region, and the fact that we weren't told ahead of time, that we had to hear it the way we did. I feel that when we have our state legislative delegation in, whenever that meeting is, we should make that as a priority, because the closure of that facility is going to affect not only this community, but it's going to affect this region with less beds, and making those people go to the closest regional facility, which I believe will be Hyannis. And maybe in the meantime, if we feel it's best, I would like a letter to go out to the Mass Department of Public Health, so someone can explain to us what's going to happen moving forward with these services, so people know what's going on. I realize this is part of the Commonwealth's budget, and I support the Healy Driscoll administration overall. But when it comes to this particular issue, I'm disappointed, and I feel that we should be given they should give us a reason of why this happened, and because I'm hearing from residents of the major displeasure of this decision.
Oh, thank you. I think we should have a future agenda item on that, just to discuss if there's going to be a board response, and also I will start thinking about planning the legislative delegation meeting. I tend to try to do that in April, but we'll see how that works out. There's a couple other things. I do want to have a meeting, an agenda item on February 4th about 90 Adams Street. We have to kind of figure out what's going to go on with that, and there's been some difficulty in terms of getting the paperwork signed, and so I want to have a discussion about that on an agenda. I'm earmarking February 11th as a potential joint meeting with the Planning Board of Conservation to discuss the old police station and potentially 90 Adams Street for disposition. We have to have a joint meeting with them, and I want to get that out of the way. And then on February 11th, we'll also be, we've been asked by the school department to sign a letter for applying for MSBA for the middle school roof, which they have been able to make progress on getting that potentially accepted by MSBA. So that will be on our agenda for February 11th too. So that was really good news about the middle school roof. That it was borderline as to whether that they'd do it, they'd take it, but it looks like MSBA is considering that, so that's good. Next meeting is February 4th and then February 11th, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Anne Marie, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jean, is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Anne Marie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
MJ, yes, 500. And it was, I believe we started at 6, so 9:06 is quite a long meeting. So
That is.
thank you all for hanging in.
Thank you.
Thank you.